Things might make us feel down, stress at work, arguments with your significant other. But what about changes in the season? In this episode, we will talk about seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, S-A-D, also known as seasonal depression. Let's find out how this mood disorder affects a person and how best to manage it. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome to Medtalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Our guests are here today to give insight on seasonal affective disorder. With us is Ms. Lorraine C. Cerezo. She's a psychologist from MPsych. Also with us is Dr. Dex Macalintal. He's a family and lifestyle medicine specialist from the Calamba Medical Center. Thank you both for joining us on the program. Now, first things first, let's talk about the difference between sadness and clinical depression. Lorraine, I'll start with you. Can you briefly explain to us what sadness is as opposed to clinical depression?
Generally, symptoms of depression and sadness, usually we think na we're lonely, we're feeling sad, we're feeling down. That's a normal thing to experience for us. However, when we say that it's already clinical depression, the severity of the sadness, in addition to other symptoms na you're feeling sluggish, there's a feeling of hopelessness, sadness, worthlessness, it already becomes severe enough that the person is not able to function anymore. No? Minsan may kasama pang mga thoughts of suicide yun. So the level of severity really is the difference of just feeling sad and being clinically depressed.
Now let's talk about seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, SAD. As the name suggests, seasonal affective disorder occurs during certain times of the year. Now, Dr. Dex, generally speaking, how can some identify that they might have seasonal affective disorder? What are some of the ways in which this is caused?
Let's first start off with what seasonal affective disorder is. It is a mental illness related to depression that occurs with changes of seasons. It could be a working proof that our environment really affects our health. And up until today, the cause of this condition is not yet known to man. Some factors may contribute to having this condition include: one, your biological clock or your circadian rhythm. They say that reduced level of sunlight during the cold seasons may disrupt the body's clock, leading to the feelings of depression. This is related to the second contributor, which is actually our neurotransmitters. Because of reduced sunlight, there seems to be lacking nutrients that are needed by the body to produce some of these neurotransmitters, such as your serotonin. This then causes a drop in levels, which may then trigger depression.
Okay, that's a very good description of what SAD is. But a lot of the studies on seasonal affective disorder are in countries where they have winter, long winter seasons. Lorraine, how can this relate dito sa atin, dito sa Pilipinas, where we only have two seasons basically, itong wet and dry seasons? Pwede rin mangyari ba ang SAD, seasonal affective disorder, dito sa Pilipinas?
Yes. Now, research suggests na, syempre, if you are closer to the equator, wherein there are less significant changes in seasons, usually fewer cases ang SAD. However, even if we're in a tropical country, there are actually still significant periods time, diba, in our year, wherein we experience longer yung gloomier seasons and rainy seasons, and that is the time when it's likely for Filipinos also to experience the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder.
Now, Dex, what symptoms do we usually see in a person with seasonal affective disorder? Because there's, I think, a big important factor here is when you mentioned that the hormones play a significant role in what we feel as well.
Yeah, so kasama dyan, sir, yung oversleeping or hypersomnia, sometimes overeating, particularly craving with your carbohydrates or refined carbohydrates. Then you get weight gain and, of course, social withdrawal. Sometimes it also occurs on the other side of the spectrum, like poor appetite or leading to weight loss, restlessness or agitation, anxiety, and even episodes of violent behavior leading to self-harm. So, kaya kinakailangan talaga na ma-diagnose natin agad ito because early diagnosis will then lead to early intervention.
So a lot of those symptoms mentioned by Dr. Dex, I'm sure a lot of our viewers were able to probably pinpoint or relate with some of them. And that's why after the break, we'll discuss who the people most at risk of this condition are. We'll be right back here on Medtalk Health Talk.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement, gama sa Davao para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement, ato ni Bay.
Ito ang RPN, Radio Philippines Network, DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo, ang Radyo Ronda sa Davao.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to Medtalk, Healthtalk, where caring is our calling. Earlier on the program, we discussed what seasonal affective disorder is, as well as some of its symptoms. Now, let's identify who are prone to develop this type of condition. Lorraine, let's talk about age groups here, or the demographic of people who are more likely to suffer from seasonal affective disorder or maybe some form of depression kapag nagpalit ang mga season. Ano mga age group dito?
Yes, no? So when it comes to yung susceptibility natin or who are at risk when it comes to age group, research would indicate na mas madalas it would be people belong to the age group ng 18 to 30. As you get older, it's less likely for you to get SED. That's for the age group.
So I think that's a very important point there. So it is actually seen in those as young as 18 years old. What is it about the young people that they're more prone to this type of depressive behavior?
Yeah, no, of course, for younger people, no, usually they're still, of course, developing, no, for younger people, especially pag mga adolescents, madalas, no, there are still hormonal changes that are happening, so that imbalance can also contribute to their susceptibility. So usually, syempre, for younger people, no, it's sometimes may difficult to say when it comes to dealing with negative emotions.
Now, Dr. Dex, when it comes to the people who are at the risk of developing seasonal affective disorder, does lifestyle play a significant role on those who might be affected by this?
Well, tama naman, ano. Pero meron kasing mga risk factors talaga. So, katulad ng mga family history natin, if there's a family member who was diagnosed with SAD, there's a risk for the family. Pero that's the non-modifiable risk factor. For the modifiable risk factor, nakita kasi na sa mga pag-aaral na people who has low vitamin D levels, no, kapag hindi sila masyadong exposed to sunlight, mas nagkakaroon sila niya. Yung mga laging nanonood lamang ng TV, hindi masyadong lumalabas ng bahay, hindi nag-e-ehersisyo, pero laging nakakubkob na lamang kung tawagin nila, no? Sila yung mas mga at risk dito. Also, kapag ang kinakain ng mga tao is more of processed, fatty, and refined carbohydrates. Also, yung mga tao na mahilig sa alcohol. And of course, those who are not really socializing with their friends, and they are just at the background, yan, mas at risk sila sa pagkakaroon ng SAD.
Now, Lorraine, is it possible for people who are experiencing a pre-existing mental health condition, can they develop a seasonal affective disorder?
No, definitely, no? So actually, when it comes to depression, ito kasi seasonal affective disorder, it's like a subtype actually of depression. So usually kapag you are already suffering from a mood disorder or any type of depression, it's more likely, no? Parang may predisposition ka or higher susceptibility ka to develop ang seasonal affective disorder.
I'd like to correlate this with something that recently happened, especially in the last 2 years. Ayun yung lockdown, the pandemic, everyone was cooped up at home. It brought about different forms of anxiety with a lot of people. Could that be a factor for someone having seasonal affective disorder later on?
Okay, so when it comes to the isolation, definitely there have been a lot of studies, no, during the pandemic time, that isolation has been something that's been a very important factor when it comes to people experiencing depressive symptoms, feeling anxious, and that can be a factor, especially if people, no, keep on isolating themselves instead of, spending time with others and strengthening their social support. So, kumbaga, that can be a risk factor, no? Ang difference lang naman is that when it comes to seasonal affective disorder is that the symptoms usually occurs during a particular time of the year.
Dr. Dex, for someone who might be feeling these certain feelings of depression, loneliness, at certain times of the season, are there health risks involved with this, with other parts of the body, physiologically for that matter?
Well, definitely. Kasi kapag medyo we are having this type of symptoms, no, marami yung mga nag-oversleep. Let's start with oversleeping. Oversleeping is related to weight gain. And if you are gaining weight, you're more prone to having obesity, which is then related to diabetes and hypertension and heart diseases. Social withdrawal. So having yourself withdrawn from the social aspect of your life, maaari na you feel more isolated, which is then related to a lot more diseases. So, nakita sa mga pag-aaral na kapag medyo socially withdrawn tayo, mas nagkakaroon ng mga mararaming sakit, kasama dyan ang non-communicable and communicable diseases. So, definitely, our environment affects us and also our community affects us.
So it can pretty much have like sort of a domino effect here, Dr. Dex, no? That's why I'd like to ask Lorraine, how can we prevent people from dismissing signs of seasonal affective disorder? How can we help them get that proper diagnosis to start with?
Yes, no? So it's very important for us to be able to recognize the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. No, siguro helpful dyan for some people, no, you can actually keep like a mood diary. No, that can be helpful. And once you recognize the symptoms, no, it's important to identify how am I performing, no? Nagagawa ko pa ba yung mga simpleng tasks ko sa bahay? Yung simpleng paggising, pagligo, paggawa ng simple chores. Kasi kapag it's to that extent na hindi ka na talaga nakaka-perform ng maayos, that's a really important sign that tells us na it might be a time for us to seek professional help.
Now, coming up, we'll share ways to help treat this seasonal condition that affects our overall mental health. Only here on Medtalk, Health Talk.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Ito ang RPN, Radio Philippines Network, DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo, ang Radyo Ronda sa Davao.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and you're watching Medtalk, Health Talk. Today, we've been talking about seasonal affective disorder, SAD. Now that we have a good understanding of this form of depression, let's discuss some of the ways that we can manage this and even probably prevent it from happening. Now, I'll start first with Lorraine. Let's talk about talking to someone. A lot of people may have problems. They talk to their significant other maybe even a family relative. Is this enough? Or kailangan ang mas maganda dito is to be able to talk to a mental health professional talaga?
When it comes to a person already suffering from the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder, of course, it helps to have a strong social support. Definitely, nakakatulong yun. But for us to really alleviate the symptoms that you are experiencing, it's important to seek professional help. Because it's through that you'll be able to seek the right ways on how you can manage your symptoms.
Here in the Philippines, there's a big cultural factor with that, no? There's actually even a stigma when it comes to talking to mental health professionals. What's your advice? Where can people call or where can they go? Is there a website that they can go to?
Yes, no, that's true. No, unfortunately, no, even until now, tama ka dyan, Dr. There's still a lot of stigma when it comes to seeking professional help, no? If you want to seek professional help, no, it is really for, your general well-being. And if you feel like you really need to seek professional help, no, there are actually a lot, no, of centers where you can actually seek help. And that could already be of help for you so that you can help manage your symptoms. Because if you're suffering from the symptoms, tapos you keep it to yourself, you suffer silently from the symptoms, that's only going to worsen. And your symptoms will be much more severe, making it more difficult for you already to cope with it.
Now, Dr. Dex, when it comes to clinical depression as well as the seasonal affective disorder, there's always a biological component to this. And of course, medication prescribed by the correct doctor does work wonders in helping people out. In lieu of going towards medicine, are there natural ways that people can boost those happy hormones that we were talking about earlier on in the show? Are there certain lifestyle changes that they can do?
Yes, if someone has been at risk for developing this type of disorder, or if someone has been having these symptoms that we were talking about, it would be a great help to consult a medical professional for help. And also, maintaining a healthy lifestyle would be a great idea. Number one, open the blinds. Work closer to a bright window. Take a walk outside, do regular exercises in the morning to catch the early morning sun. And of course, normalize your sleep patterns by having a regular sleeping schedule. Also, remember that we have to have those cofactors so that we can nourish our neurotransmitters. So make healthier choices for meals and snacks, and avoid eating too much processed and fatty foods, and of course, refined carbohydrates. You eliminate alcohol, and of course, if you are doing recreational drugs, tigilan nyo na po yan, walang magagawa mabuti yan sa mga buhay ninyo. Also, practice stress management techniques like yoga, meditation, and socialize and rekindle relationships with friends as they offer support and, of course, shared laughter.
Now, Dex, and sunlight is a big factor here. Do you think those who work the night shift, are they at risk for this as well? Should they be watching out for any signs of depressive symptoms?
Well, definitely, kasi nga kulang na nga sila ng sunlight, ano. But ang maganda lang is kapag ka umaalis sila ng trabaho nila, they are also exposed to sun. But yes, they are at risk of having that, and it would be great if they consult us para makita natin kung saan sila nagkukulang.
How important is it, Dr. Dex, to have an exercise routine incorporated in someone's daily life in order to get the benefits from this?
Being active is a great step in managing this type of disease or this disorder. Kasi tandaan natin that movement is movement. And when you talk about exercise, when you talk about physical activity, it would greatly help you get those endorphins and get those hormones and get those neurotransmitters in play.
Now, Lorraine, when it comes to any disease, we always like to talk about prevention. But in this case, is it possible to prevent such feelings of depression coming about or even escalating to a certain point?
Well, when it comes to prevention, that's a tricky question because when you talk about seasonal affective disorder, actually any type of a mental health disorder, when you already have the predisposition to have it, it's very difficult for you to prevent it. But that doesn't mean that we can mitigate its effects. So for seasonal affective disorder, the thing about it is it's predictable. We know when it's about to arrive on the symptoms, usually during the New Year or the colder seasons. So if we are able to prepare ourselves, even before it comes, then the symptoms will not be so severe and we can better manage them.
Now, before we go, do you have any tips, Lorraine, for our viewers?
Yes, so siguro it would be good, to be really self-aware. It's good if you can keep like a journal where you can write your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences, just so you can track if there are certain patterns. You would identify meron bang triggers kapag I experience these negative emotions. Okay? And it's important to keep your social support strong to make sure that you are connected with others. And lastly, syempre, once you recognize the symptoms, do not stop yourself from seeking professional help. Yun naman ang kailangan natin.
And Dr. Dex, of course, any advice for the viewers before we go?
Yes, of course. Tandaan natin that our bodies are governed by our systems na biologic. But inside that system is our mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of health. At lahat yan ay maaaring makaapekto po sa ating mga kalusugan. That's why it is very important that you listen to your body, kumain kayo ng maayos, mag-ehersisyo kayo, at iwasan po ninyo ang mga stress. At ngayon din, kung mayroon po kayong mga kilala na nahihirapan po i-manage ang kanilang mga sakit, pumunta po tayo sa ating mga medical professionals.
And with that, thank you very much, Dr. Dex Macalintal and Ms. Lorraine C. Cerezo for this insightful discussion and sharing your expertise about seasonal affective disorder. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching Medtalk Health Talk. We'll see you again next time.